Dot, 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 dot. Good morning, everybody. It is a gorgeous day, and I'm super pumped you're here because we got a great show for you. This weather's got me thinking about the time I almost died surfing Hurricane Dennis in the 90s. We're going to share about that and 3 lessons I learned from that that actually will help you with your passion project and achieve that. We're going to talk about an ancient piece of historical Black art that was found on the front yard in a St. Louis house. We're going to be talking about the Torrid meteor shower and so many other things. But before that, we're going to talk about other news. And before that, we're going to talk about morning cup of gratitude. Now, I don't have a cup of gratitude because I already had my coffee. And if you can't tell, I don't need that much more. But we're going to talk about what you're grateful for this morning. Hit me in the comments. What are you absolutely most grateful for this morning? I'll start. I'm grateful for this wonderful weather. I'm grateful for my awesome Spark Sites team. I'm grateful that I had 3 people this week ask me if we can actually start a little investment club for, you guessed it, cryptocurrency. So we're going to be doing this in the Discord if you're interested. Who jumped in and said, good morning? Who is this? Who is this? Why can't I see your profile? You probably found us on Goals and Gratitude. So this is going to be Lisa or it's going to be Jessica. Here, let's see. It's Jessica. Good morning, Jessica. I hope you're doing fantastic this morning. But yes, I'm grateful that 3 separate people separately came to me and said, listen, I'm awfully busy. I love what you're doing with crypto. I see what you're doing with these 20 and 60% returns. You're showing us the numbers. We want to get involved. So if you're in the Discord or if you want to talk about one-on-one, we're going to put together a little pool of money. And mind you, not trading advice, not investment advice, just an investment club of money that you could stand to lose. If you can't, then follow us in the free Discord and we'll actually share with you our play-by-plays. We're going to pull our money together to kind of get some leverage, but we'll show you transparently, play-by-play, what's going on in the Discord. So follow us over there. The comments will have all of those details. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that people are showing trust in what we're doing and that it's fun. And no one, of course, wants to miss out on what's going on with cryptocurrency. So what are you grateful for this morning? That's what I'm grateful for. What are you grateful for this morning? Let me know in the comments. Here, let me like this. Good morning, Root. Thanks for liking the show. I appreciate you, sir. So let's talk about other news. My voice broke. It missed my beautiful singing. That's okay. Let's talk about front yard trash art. Man, I feel naked without my coffee. That's okay. So recently, just last year, I believe, an art enthusiast, was driving through St. Louis, and they passed a yard, and right on the porch of the yard, they saw this sculpture that looked rough-hewn out of a white stone and kind of looked like 2 females side by side. Now, this art enthusiast had a fantastic eye, and they had a suspicion. So they returned to New York City, where they were from, and actually got the American Folk Art Museum involved in New York City, and asked a few questions. And this art enthusiast and a representative from the American Folk Art Museum returned to St. Louis and knocked on the front door and started inquiring of the origins of this very rough-hewn sculpture that was kind of ambiguous, but looked like 2 females sitting side by side. Well, they had a super sharp eye because this sculpture was from 1937 by artist William Edmondson. Now, bear with me. Why does this matter? The name of the piece is Martha and Mary. And you can imagine that, yes, it comes from the biblical story of Mary and Martha. The work, here's what is so important about this piece. It was displayed in 1937. And why this is important was it was displayed at the Museum of Modern Art, also where the American Folk Art Museum is attached to, in 1937, when William Edmondson became the first Black artist to headline a solo exhibition in New York City's MoMA history. The Museum of Modern Art had not had a Black artist do a solo show in its history. And William Edmondson was the first in 1937. And this piece, Martha and Mary, went on display at that time. Now, the sculpture then went on to Paris, where it disappears from history. And sadly, William Edmondson himself was buried in an unmarked grave. Now, what's interesting about William Edmondson is that he was the son of a slave. He himself was born on a plantation in 1874 when he believed he received a vision for his life in 1934. In 1934, he believed he received a vision for his life to actually sculpt. And so he started sculpting headstones to mark the graves of other children born of slaves. He himself would be buried in an unmarked grave, and Martha and Mary would actually disappear from history until last year when this art enthusiast found this piece just driving through St. Louis, and it had appeared with a mysterious history on this person's front porch in St. Louis. Now, that's not completely impossible to imagine, but if you want to follow the story, I'm going to actually give you the link right here of how this piece of art not only moved through history, but also moved specifically through Black history. Again, the Museum of Modern Art's first Black artist doing a show solo in 1937, and this art piece then ends up on a porch in 2020, I believe. Check it out. I've left the link in the comments below. You can see a thumbnail of the sculpture, and you can see it's very abstract in its sculpture. So what a good eye to actually catch that and know that it is from a Black folk artist. So there you have it in the comments below. Let's talk about I See Dirt Balls. And no, that wasn't my high school nickname because I wasn't icy. I was very warm and gregarious, if you can imagine. Basically, the Torrid meteor shower is now sending a swarm of icy dirt balls across the sky. It will peak next Thursday. Now, for those who don't know, there are two meteor showers in November, the Taurids and the Leonids. The Leonids are around November 17th. But the Taurids are interesting and unique because they have two different streams of meteors, the southern and the northern. Now, some scientists believe that this is because the comet that is associated with the Taurids, which we'll give you in a second, was broken up by a gravity well from Jupiter and actually shredded the tail of the comet into two separate, tails of the comet. Now, the southern Torrid meteor shower can be seen high in the night sky in the constellation Taurus, which is where it gets its name. And the northern Torrid meteor shower will peak next week on the 11th and 12th. Now, what comet is associated with the Taurids? Let's see it. Let's test your knowledge. I'll give you 3 seconds. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. Boom! It's Comet Encke. And very few of us actually have ever heard of Comet Encke, but its tail is what we travel through roughly between now and November 11th, where we get the northern and southern Torrid meteor shower. Now, it doesn't have a high volume of meteors. You won't sit up at night in a clear sky, which we don't have this morning. It's gorgeous and rainy. But in a clear sky, you're not going to see dozens, if not hundreds. The Leonid meteor shower tends to have a higher volume of meteors. But the southern and the northern Torrid meteor shower has very bright meteors when they do occur. They're very bright. So you can check that out if you want to track. Here we go. I got the link for you. If you want to track the Torrid meteor shower, boom, there you go. In the comments, you can track what's going on with that. And it basically is a 2-for-1. It's giving you 2 meteor showers for the price of 1. Check it out there in the comments. And I don't know if that's a time-lapse thumbnail or what, but it looks super fun. So let's talk about the time I almost drowned and I almost became victim number 5 of Hurricane Dennis. Let's talk about it. Gosh, I wish I had my coffee. That's okay. I'm going to have plenty later this morning. So roughly in 1999, I think in the fall of 1999, growing up in Vero Beach, Florida, it was a thing to surf the storms. And then when hurricanes came, you'd always try to challenge yourself to see, am I big enough, strong enough, fast enough, man enough, bold enough to actually surf a hurricane surf, because hurricane surfs were unpredictable. You see, in normal weather, The surf on the East Coast is fairly predictable. The surf and the breaks are fairly predictable, but they're all sand breaks. So when a hurricane comes in and stirs up all the sand, the break shifts and then the waves get humongous and they close out. The tides get unpredictable. You can get sucked out to sea. If you're there in the middle of the storm, you can encounter tree logs or full-blown trees, as I'll share in a second. So in the fall of 1999, I had graduated high school. I was living in Orlando. And I decided that Hurricane Dennis had just passed off the coast in parallel with the Florida East Coast. And I knew that the swell was going to be huge. And I was driving between Vero Beach and Orlando all the time. And I decided, hey, man, this is a big surf. I heard that it really messed up the coast. And I hear that the waves are cranking. Now, the storm had just passed, and that's usually the best time to go surfing because the wind of of how the storm circulates, the wind actually shifts and glasses off the waves if they're surfable. So I took my board at the time. I drove up the coast and ended up in Cocoa Beach. And I was sitting there at the break, and I went out, and it was a gorgeous sunny day. The wind was whipping the clouds by. The water wasn't blue in the slightest. It was a murky, muddy brown because it had been churned up. And I sat on the beach and I could feel the heavy surf. This was the biggest surf I had ever actually even laid my eyes on. It was huge walls of surf just pounding. And anytime a swell would come in, it would heave up all at once and pitch. And you would think, oh God, I'm usually used to a peak. And when it peaks and starts peeling off, you can surf that. But these were solid walls. And I suddenly got absolutely scared and nervous. And looking up and down the beach, there were some braver surfers than I who had already paddled out. There were other nervous surfers like me sitting on the beach trying to come up with our plan, standing up tall, trying to come up with our plan on how we were going to tackle this surf. If you look down the beach, there was this giant boat, looked like a cargo boat, had already been washed ashore and rolled over on its side. And I knew that they were going to have to take care of that. And when you see boats on the shore, that the swell and the storm swell and the hurricane storm surge had pushed in, you know it's going to be heavy. And I didn't often surf Cocoa Beach. In fact, I was used to my beach, which was about an hour down the coast. But in this case, I was pumped. I was ready to go. I had my board out. I had my leash on. I was prepped and ready to go. And I was freaking out a little bit. So I do what you do when you approach your passion project. In fact, I find most of what I learned about business, I learned from surfing. You see, when there's a break like this, there's several steps you take, which I'll share in a second, the 3 steps of how I surf. Later did I find out that 4 people had died trying to surf Hurricane Dennis, or not just surf, but had died in the hurricane. And that day, I was nervous. I was trying to come up with a plan. I'm going to enter here, and then I'm going to try to see if there's a channel. Now, most of the time when you go surfing at a break, you can notice where the water washes in, how the tide and current flows, and then how it washes back out. It's called a channel. And when we lived in the Dominican Republic, the surf break we were at near Encuentro and Cabarete, they actually had a channel that was obvious because it was a reef break. But here I was facing this hurricane swell, and the channel wasn't entirely clear. The reason being that when these swells come up in pitch, you've got to find a way to paddle out without getting crushed by the next wave. So it makes for scary times. And so I was trying to find my entry point, trying to find the channel, coming up with this and realizing I had a massive awareness. I'm stalling. There's no way to come up with a perfect plan here for this swell. There's no way to come up with the perfect approach to get out here. I'm trying to come up with a perfect plan and a perfect approach and the right entry point because I'm afraid and I have an unknown and I'm stalling. Am I not confident in my skills to paddle out? Am I not confident in my strength, in my actual fitness, in my ability to navigate on the fly? And I was faced with this reality when I said, that's it, I'm going to go. Now, I won't draw too much of the parallels here because in this particular instance, I got my butt handed to me. I paddled out and I ended up getting pounded pounded by waves, and I kept duck diving, getting pounded and duck diving. I was starting to lose my breath and duck diving and pounding. And finally, I made my way out, and I actually paddled into a wave. It was one of the best waves of my life because it was the largest waves, and it took the most amount of courage. I dropped in, and as I was going down the line, trying to get down the line before this wave pitched over and closed out on me, it sucked out, and I saw an entire oak tree right in front of me. And I tried to angle up. Now, I'm not this controlled and this skilled, but I tried to angle my board up and around to go around the root system. Something caught, whether it was my leash or the board. And fortunately, I went flying over the oak tree, just passed down the line. But that's when the wave pitched and closed out, and I went lights out dark. I was swimming towards the top looking for air, when suddenly I touched sand. I had been turned around upside down and swimming the wrong direction. And I blacked out. Now, fortunately, as some of you know, the story goes that I came conscious, gasping for air, hugging my surfboard. I must have gone on an autopilot. I was about half a mile down the beach holding my surfboard, just gasping for air as the waves were pushing me in and other surfers were pulling me into the shore as I caught my breath. Almost died. Let's talk about your passion project. Are you looking for the perfect entry point before you start really announcing and telling people what you're up to? Are you trying to get your brand right, your website right, the plan right, the pitch right? There's a time for that in business. You might have been in business for a while, and there's a time to level up, to really invest in a solid strategy, really level up in a rebrand, really level up your web presence. But there's a time just to get out there and go hard. You see, this week in our Discord, one of our awesome Discord members reached out and said, hey, what's your target price entry point? Grant, what's the right time to enter the right cryptos? And I'm about to do a video for this in the Discord in detail because I do have a strategy, but it's not picking the right price point. It's first believing in the project. Go back with me to the coast of Florida when Hurricane Dennis was cruising through. I first had to realize I was committed to surfing this wave. And no matter the perfect plan and the perfect hypothesis I could come up with, in the end, I had to trust my skills. Quite often, many of you are doubting yourself. You're doubting your skills, and you're hoping the perfect plan, the perfect idea, the perfect entry will actually make up for your lack of self-confidence in your skills. But let me reframe you. You have the skills. You know how to swim. You and I know how to talk to people. We know how to share what we're trying to do. And like my friend asking me for the perfect entry point, there is none. If you have an investment to make, if you are committed to surfing, if you have a cryptocurrency investment to make, if you have a passion project, there's just stepping out. Now, don't step out with the whole thing. When it comes to cryptocurrency, if I had $100 or $1,000 to spend, I'm not going to put $1,000 on that currency. I'm going to put $250. If I step out into this surf to actually surf these big waves, I'm not going to gas myself paddling out right away. I'm going to be patient. The idea is I'm just going to crank and get out there and so that I don't get pounded by these waves, but you're going to exhaust yourself. So though you're 100% committed, the only strategy is to conserve energy. The same with cryptocurrency and the same with your passion project. You need to get 100% committed. And then the only strategy is to step in. And the reason when it comes to cryptocurrencies, you only put in $250 is when that goes up or down, you dollar cost average the next step and then put another $250 down. And then you start getting a sense for how the current is moving. It's the same thing with surfing big waves. You just got to get out and start to feel how the current's moving and feel how the swell's moving, even though it might be washing over you and pounding you. That's what it's got to do. Too often, things are so clean in the business world that we don't realize you just need to step out into your passion and let the current move you around a little bit and adjust. Adjust your pitch, adjust who you're talking to, but you have to make constant progress. You got to just jump out. So here are the 3 steps I'm going to give you real quick of what I learned from surfing that I think you should parallel into your business. Step 1. First, you got to commit to the joy of surfing the flow. You got to just commit to it. A lot of you people are like, well, let me plan. And planning is commitment. There's a point when you're standing on the shore where you need to realize the difference between committing to surfing this thing and planning and stalling. Yes, when it comes to surfing, number one, you got to commit to the joy of surfing. Number two, you've got to watch this heavy break. You got to pay attention to what's going on. You got to do your research. You got to do your homework. And number three, yes, come up with a plan. When it comes to surfing, you come up with a plan, but like I said, you're standing on the shore and you're realizing, I'm stalling. We do the same in crypto and investing. We do the same in our businesses. We're planning to the point of stalling. And it's at that point that when you can recognize, if you even have the suspicion, I think I'm stalling, that's the moment where you've got to swallow your fear. If you can imagine me, this point of no return when it comes to surfing, when you're standing on the beach and the water's touching your toes and it's a little chilly because it's August water and you're like, and the water is freaking you out and you're freaked out, there comes a moment where you have to accept, I am stalling. There is no perfect plan here. I just have to go. And it's the same in your project. If you are writing the perfect plan, come up with a plan, come up with a hypothesis, but jump in and execute. Jump right in and figure it out. Figure out the sales, figure out the bookkeeping. There's awesome tools out there, but why am I talking about this? This week, I cannot tell you the number of people that I've come across that we've been talking about their next step quite a bit. We've been talking about their next step for some time. And I finally had the dawning realization, you're stalling. I was approached this week with 3 different people who want to invest in cryptocurrency, and us put together a little fund. And I keep thinking, can I get people just to invest in me? This is the moment. I'm stalling. I need to just jump. Whatever this project is, whatever this passion is that you have that you need, I encourage you to analyze, have you been stalling? If you've been stalling for the perfect partner, the perfect plan, the perfect timing, the perfect entry point, I want you to put that to the side and just start. Go have lunch with somebody and tell them what you're doing and say, do you know anyone who might want this service or this product I'm offering? And just start. Adjust. Change with the current, change with the tide. But I'm here to encourage you on a Friday morning. Learn from my experience surfing and jump in. Put aside the idea of the perfect plan and just go with the flow and adjust. And remember, this is part of the joy of surfing. I just want to encourage you to get out there and start something big this week. Listen, I'm going to go have awesome coffee with my awesome wife. If you want to get involved in conversations like these, man, join us. We have the goals and gratitude group floating around. Join us in our free Discord. Join the Patreon if you want our trades or our cryptocurrencies or even just coaching for small business. We do it all. We answer your questions there on the Patreon. But no matter what you do today, remember the mission: igniting lives of explosive significance, starting with your own. Have a great day.